if they don't want to show this piece of information, and you feel it's important, or they want to go from a different angle, how can we switch it up to where it's still effective and we're still getting the point across? So that was also pretty difficult to kind of manage, because again, it was like someone's safety at play, and like their family safety back in Egypt and everything. So that was some of the most difficult parts of making this specific piece.
Thank you so much for letting us know about that. I think it's so interesting, the layers that exist in your story, not only from what we see, but also what happened behind the scenes, and how much effort it took for you as a filmmaker to respect those boundaries that were set. Because I've seen it time and time again, where we have, documentarians at the very least, like exploiting their subjects and opening them up to a lot of hate or danger. So
Right.
it's on
And
us better.
Right. And I also think that this is not common practice in filmmaking, but if you feel comfortable sharing the piece with that person, that's something to consider. That could get into tricky territory, because then, this is a piece about somebody, and once they watch it, of course they're going to have opinions and want to change this and that and that. So it might be something you want to consider. And if you do, making sure that you have a strong argument for the edits and the structure that you've created. Again, it could be tricky, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't recommend that for every single documentary you make, but for me, I was trying to give as much detail as I could to Anna Masria, without showing the documentary, because I wanted her to trust me. So letting her know, like, hey, I do go into this, and that, and I did keep these parts of the interview in there. Like, is that cool with you? And there were some things that we removed because she was like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with that. That's kind of a red flag for me. So let's just nix it. And I was able to still work around it and get and create the piece that I wanted, because of all the work that went into the interviews.
Great. Okay, so the next question is, what is one piece of advice you have for someone who's interested in making their own documentary?
I would say this is another piece of advice that not everybody might advise you to do, but like, talk to people about the piece that have nothing to do with the piece. So like, I almost essentially was pitching the film to like my friends and stuff. It's like, oh, like, yeah, I'm working on this documentary for BuzzFeed about like Enema Studia, this Arab drag queen, and like seeing people's reactions to that and seeing how they take to the story. It was really reaffirming in the piece that I was making, and also told me like, oh, there's an audience for this and people want to see it. And then like some people would have questions and they'd be curious, and it would help kind of feed my own research. So that's one piece of advice. And then making sure that like it's a tight story, because people say, I want to show everything, and I want this film to be for everyone. And I hear that time and time again, but like the film is not for everybody, and you cannot show everything. And so really, like, I took extensive notes on my interviews, and I was watching the footage and taking notes on the footage, and really like just chopping away at what are the pieces that I felt like I needed to show. So I would start with like the bigger themes, and then I would kind of put things under those themes and be like, okay, I want to show this, or maybe I could take this out. And really sitting with that material and kind of digging through that and being comprehensive with it to the extent that you can. If it's a commission piece, you might not have that luxury, but if it's like your own time, or and you have more liberty with that, like, take the time you need. That was like 3 pieces of advice wrapped in like one.
It was really good. I was just thinking, actually, since you were funded by BuzzFeed, were there any points in time where you guys like butt heads, or were you given a lot of flexibility?
So because I was a video fellow, which is like basically a producer without the producer title, I kind of was like able to do what I wanted, to be completely honest. I probably would have a different experience if I was a full-time employee. So everyone was really on board with it. Everyone actually was really interested in it. And there was nobody that was Arab on my team. So I didn't really talk to them about that aspect too much, to be completely honest. there was only one time where I had a soundbite in one of the cuts that didn't sit right with me because it felt like I was almost feeding into those racist tropes that I had mentioned earlier, those racist homophobic tropes really. And it was such a good soundbite, like the way that Enema said it, and the facial expression, like from a filmmaking perspective, objectively, it was a really like poignant part, but it just didn't serve the narrative in a way that I wanted it to, in the way that I felt was appropriate. So I took it out, and I had like one or two people be like, "Oh, what happened to that?" And I think one person I kind of ignored, to be completely honest, and then the next I kind of just explained my reasoning, and they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I had a lot of liberty with this piece, which is can be very rare, especially when you're working for a media company.
I'm happy to hear that it was a positive experience. I know that when you're hired to do something, especially as a person of color, as a creative, there are so many lines that get crossed and so many boundaries that get pushed. So I'm really glad that that worked out for you. Also, I see that Suzanne put a question in the chat. We will get to those after we're done with these questions, but please, guys,
Cool.
if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We would love to hear from you guys. So now we're on to the next question. It is, are there any issues you see yourself making documentaries about in the future?
I would love to do a larger piece about underground queer culture. I think it would be really cool to do in the Middle East. I don't know what media there is about it, so there might be pieces out there, but I think that would be really dope to do. But honestly, I'm kind of switching more into a fiction realm. So I've teetered between it, but I really want to get back into fiction. So I think I've been working on like this like outline script, whatever, very loose idea about basically like, I won't give away too much, but it's like sci-fi. It's about Palestine, and it's kind of about like borders and geopolitics in a sci-fi context. So we'll see how that goes. So
That's so
that
cool.
that's something that I'm really excited to be working on. But yeah, kind of I love documentaries, but it's a different type of beast, and I just don't have the money or the capacity to focus on both of those.
That is very fair, honestly.
Mhm.
I'm so excited. That sounds so cool. Like taking these issues and honestly bringing some type of mysticism to it. I
Mhm.
I think that's amazing. So I'm
Yes.
very excited. Let me
Yeah.
know when you come
Yes,
back.
I'll let you know. I will let everybody in here know.
So our next question is, you really care about ethical filmmaking. What inspired you to start caring for this movement?
um, I just try to be like an ethical, good person. I hate when I don't like when people try to control my own narrative and like my own identities and try to tell me about myself. I find it very rude, and I'm kind of like, hey, I think I know me, you know. I'm going to therapy, I'm working through it, but like I think I know me best. And so it's kind of just like extending that consideration to others. Like that's really what it is. Like it's kind of this um honestly like Christian belief of like treat your neighbor how you would want to be treated, and that's how I approach people in my life, that's how I approach my work, and that's how I approach the movements that I care about, because I'm like, hey, if that were me, like, and I was stuck in that position, I'd be really mad if people were misrepresenting me or ignoring me or not giving me the platform that I feel I deserve. So that's kind of the source of my care around different movements and this type of subject matter.
I think it's a really amazing approach. And I think it's one that a lot more filmmakers should definitely take into account.
I agree.
It's, risky business nowadays. And I think the only way to combat that is to approach things with kindness and consideration, because that's
And
what's
I
missing.
right, and I think that also as filmmakers, and I don't know that it's so much with like current movements members and like this group specifically, but like you kind of have to ask yourself like, okay, if you're going into like a big Hollywood system, for example, like is that the system you want to be in? What can you achieve in there, and where will you what kind of red tape will you run into? What kind of backlash could you run into? Because like Hollywood is not the end all be all. In the same way that I don't think independent cinema is the end all be all. You know, like I know a lot of people think alternative cinema is like kind of the only way forward, and I don't know that I believe that fully, but I do believe it is a way forward. And I'm realizing, especially now as I'm working right now, I currently work on, I'm a PA on a network show. I'm kind of realizing like, oh, maybe this is not the system that I want to work in. Maybe like my heart really lies in like the alternative modes of filmmaking. So you really kind of have to ask yourself, and like you might not have the answer overnight. You might hone in on it over experiences, or you might feel very strongly about like, yep, I'm doing indie cinema, and like that's that. Um, so yeah, I think that that's important for people to ask themselves as they create films and get into these worlds.
Awesome. And so now we can get to Suzanne's question. Um, they wrote, how long did the process take from finding your talent to finishing the project?
So how long did it take? It was March to June of this year. So what, 4 months in total? I kind of got into drag a little bit in March and then came up with this idea. And then April, I really like kind of went for it. Excuse me, where I was doing the research a little bit more, but I was preoccupied with other BuzzFeed videos. But I think I had gotten in touch with Enema Studio towards middle or end of April. And then May, we actually had a pre-interview. Sorry, I'm gonna backtrack actually. I saw Enema Saria in March on a live show for Yalla Punk, which is a Swana, Southwest Asian and North African punk festival based out of Philly. It's really cool. They do a lot of really cool work. And I saw Enema Saria doing a live show there. And so I kind of like saved that post to revisit in the future, and was doing my own research throughout April. And then May, I had reached out, did a pre-interview, and then found out like within 10 days of filming that Enema Studio was about to have a show. So it really was like really fast from there. Like I had to get COVID test, I had to arrange my travel, I had to like really like it was very stressful because it was such a condensed timeline, like the actual like talking to Enema Studio and then the filming. But I filmed her show and her getting ready for the show. And then I went back up to New York a few days later to do a follow-up interview. And then I was spending really all of June editing, and I got it out June 30th because I wanted to get it out during Pride Month. And I literally was editing like honestly past the time that it was due. Like I like the day of, I was like, it's gonna be out, it's gonna be out in the hour, it's gonna be out in the next hour. And even now I'm like, damn, I wish I could have done this and I wish I could have done that. But I really wanted it to be packaged with the Pride stuff because I don't think that queer Arab identity is something that honestly was on BuzzFeed's radar. And I told my team that, so I don't mind saying that. But like that's just not something that was on their radar. And it felt important to have that as part of that, under that umbrella. So yeah, it was about 4 months in total.
So I have a follow-up question to that, and then we'll get to Naomi's question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to hear more about the distribution process of your film. I mean, after it was done, because it seems like you were kind of pushed to the deadline, which I understand. How was that in like a business way dealt with?
So they were okay, honestly, because I was a video fellow, no one was like, you need this, you need to get this film out now, you need to get this film out now. Like it wasn't really on their radar like that, to be completely frank. It was kind of it was an actual deadline, but it also was a self-imposed deadline. So if I wanted to take more time and get it out at the end of July, I could have, but like I felt like it was at such a good point at the time that it didn't need that. In terms of distribution, it went on BuzzFeed's YouTube page, and honestly, that was about it. And that to me still is kind of a sore point for me, mostly because when you work for a media company, they own all the rights to what you make. BuzzFeed has all the footage. I don't have any of the footage anymore. Maybe I have like one of my memory cards or something, but I don't have the hard drive or anything. And I think the opportunity that I missed out on was like finding a way to get it out further beyond BuzzFeed's YouTube channel. And I still believe there's a way to do that. But the thing is, when you release something online, it kind of alters its distribution path, like its qualification for festivals. It's kind of, because now it's not an exclusive thing. Really, it boils down to exclusivity. Um, but at the same time, I was like, well, BuzzFeed's a huge platform, and like this doesn't necessarily need to be an exclusive thing. So I go back and forth with myself about that, but it really like went on BuzzFeed, and that was about that. But I pushed it on my own channels. I know my friends were sharing a lot. And as I said in the installment, like at the end of the day, like the fact that I had queer Arabs and queer Palestinians specifically too, even though Enema is Egyptian, just being Palestinian, hearing from queer Palestinians was very special, and they're queer Arabs. So I was like, okay, this was the right path to go on for this specific piece. And now also I've built a relationship with Enema to where if I want to do a follow-up piece, or if I want to tap into her network for a future piece, I have that option as well, and I could probably approach it in a different way. But it stayed on BuzzFeed, and I like that it lives there. Like I wish it went to festivals, but I do like that it lives on BuzzFeed.
Awesome. I think it's, I mean, definitely accessible, and that's something that
Right.
matters. Yeah.
Yeah, the accessibility was also something that I was thinking about. I was like, oh, okay, like, people can watch it wherever, whenever. And what's it called? It's also like English language, and the few Arabic portions are English subtitled. I was very intentional about leaving. It was very few portions that she was speaking Arabic, but very intentional about leaving those and translating it for the audience, because I thought that was important. Because she's from Egypt, like she immigrated to the US, so like she's bound to speak Arabic in it. But yeah, it was nice that like I could send it to my mom and like my aunts and uncles, and like they didn't have to chase it down. Like that
Yeah.
was really nice. That was really special.
I love that. So we'll
Mhm.
get to Naomi's question, and if you guys have any more questions, please post them in because we do end at 7:30 today.
Mhm.
She wrote, "Who are some filmmakers who inspire you, not just in the films that they make, but in how they navigate filmmaking ethically? Also, who are your sci-fi influences?"
Yes. So one of the one of my favorite movies is Moonlight by Barry Jenkins, and I fell in love. I watched the script, or sorry, not watched the script. I read the script, and that kind of opened up a whole new world in my mind of like how you can write a script and how you can approach a story in like a poetic way um that is not typically advised to film studio and sort of writers or what have you. Like the script for Moonlight's pretty like untraditional in a lot of its form and the way that it's written. Um, so that really opened my eyes. And also Barry Jenkins being a straight man, that part of the film, the sexuality aspect, like I felt like he approached it with a lot of care and a lot of nuance, despite being a straight director. And he was able to marry his own experiences with blackness and being in Miami, and then bring in this other experience, and really create a beautiful nuanced film. So that's definitely one that I look to. And there's a Palestinian filmmaker. She's traditionally a documentarian. Her name is Maya Masri, and she did this beautiful haunting film called 3000 Nights about a female Palestinian political prisoner. It's a fiction film, but it's so good. I think it's a really phenomenal film. It's really nuanced. And yeah, there's this. I really watch a lot of Palestinian films, naturally because I was with the festival. But I really look up to them, to be completely honest. Hani Abu Asad, Mahdi Fleifel, he does experimental short documentaries, and a lot of them have focused on like Palestinian refugees in Greece and in Lebanon in a very like very heavy way, but in a uh very heavy and very heady. Like I really appreciate that it's kind of like esoteric, because I feel like it's a little bit more psychological, and it doesn't feel intrusive, which is nice, because I think a lot of Palestinian films, or a lot of films about Palestinians, especially by non-Palestinians, can feel a bit intrusive, in my opinion. So those are a few of my filmmakers and films that I look up to. And then who are my sci-fi influences? So that's where part of my research is coming in, because I'm not a huge sci-fi person, but I did just read Kindred by Octavia Butler, which was like, just I'm still really sitting with that book. And I think there's a film adaptation from a few years ago or a few decades ago that I need to watch. But um, the fact that it is sci-fi, but it's not like, like robots and da 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 da. That also was something that I appreciated. Like approaching, for those who aren't familiar, Kindred is basically about a Black woman who was transported back to slavery, not on her own will or anything. Like it just kind of happens to her, and she has to reckon with that, and navigate this world in a totally different like timeline. Like it just happened. The time is not matching up with present day in terms of like how long things are taking, etc. But that was a very unique way of approaching the story from like that was written decades ago, and I haven't seen that in modern media, like at least from what I've been exposed to so far. So that definitely is one of my current influences. But I'm taking recommendations of people, especially things that have to deal with like teleportation and time travel. Like, let me know what you're watching, what you're reading, what I should look into, because that's kind of the realm that my script and my film will live in. Sankofa, I've watched Sankofa as well, a few years ago. So that's also one of my kind of in my research for this script.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that awesome answer and some recommendations as you went. I wasn't expecting
Yes.
all that. No, because
Yes.
I love Moonlight, and I was like, maybe I need to open up that script and read
You
it.
do. No, you do. You do. I also read the script for Mother, that film with Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh,
And
Darren.
I don't remember who the other actor was, but that also was I've never watched the film, but the script was kind of crazy. And I kind of love that it was like so like I was just asking myself, like, what the hell is going on? Like, I kind of love that it kept me questioning. I thought that was a good way to approach a film as well. So keeping that in mind with my own work moving forward.
So, do you think you would suggest to people to look at the works that inspire them, like study these other works that exist in order to inspire their own work?
Yeah, I would say to inspire your own work and also like show you what you don't want to do. Like it's kind of a kind of a negative mindset, but I usually start from a place of here's what I don't want to do. Here's what I don't want to happen when with the final product, and then I'll like chip away from there. And that's kind of my method of doing things. I'm like, okay, here's my boundaries. Here's as far as I'm willing to go and where I'm not willing to go. Okay, let's work within these bubbles now.
I love that.
Mhm.
So it's 7:30. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. We are so, so glad that you were able to do this with us. And we're so happy to all of the audience members, even your friends who came out to help you out and
Yes.
support you. I think it was a really great conversation. And guys, don't forget that Michael does have the installment that we screened earlier, if you weren't able to see it, available on Feed the Reel. In addition to his installment, we offer numerous opportunities, jobs, gigs, all types of stuff on Feed the Reel to help BIPOC and low income aspiring filmmakers get connected and get working and just creating, because that's what we can do. We can tell our stories and we can use the awesome advice that Michael gives us to do it more ethically. So I'm posting the invite link if you guys want to join. If you guys want to say bye or hang around, ask Michael some questions, definitely feel free to do that.
Yes, thank you all for coming to the Zoom today and coming to this Q&A, to the film club, I should say. And thank you guys for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and I always love talking about this stuff. So I can stick around for a few minutes if people want to hang out. Cool. Ooh, what's going on in the chat? Oh,
Guys,
thanks, y'all.
thank you all for coming out.